All right, Psalm 41, let's call this one Waiting in Vain. Understanding all the talk we've been doing about personally waiting, understand even more that there are things that we can do that can actually encourage God to leave our enemies waiting in vain in this chapter that actually starts and ends with some of those things that we can do to actually, like we said, encourage God to leave our enemies waiting in vain. But in this chapter, the first thing that David is going to encourage us to realize is that in verse 1, blessed is the one who considers the poor. In the day of trouble, the Lord delivers him. The Lord protects him and keeps him alive. He is called blessed in the land. You do not give him up to the will of his enemies. The Lord sustains him on his sickbed. God willing, that's a promise we can all lay claim to insofar as God gives us an open ear. But David is going to go on to say, as for me, though, I need grace. So he is going to say that he is still struggling with the consequences of some of his iniquities, as we mentioned before. Consequences that have actually opened doors, at least in the past, maybe not in this particular psalm, but in the past and quite possibly likewise in this psalm, for his enemies, because he's going to describe not only the way that they wish ill upon him, but much like Job found maybe some wickedness in his friends when they came to comfort him, David is going to find those who are going to come to him under the pretense of comfort or maybe just a courtesy call or even maybe some encouragement. But in reality, they go out wishing the worst for him, leading up to a very famous passage in verse 9 where it says, even my close friend in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted his heel against me. Understanding that there's still an upside. God can turn tragedy into something valuable. Understanding that David is getting a chance to see what's really on the hearts of those who seem to be his friends. And so as he is in the midst of a low moment, he is still getting insight from God as to who he can and cannot actually trust. Something we mentioned before, but may be worth repeating in this psalm where he goes on to ask God, verse 10, but you, O Lord, be gracious to me and raise me up that I may repay them. Verse 11, by this I know that you delight in me. My enemy will not shout in triumph over me, but you have upheld me because of my integrity and set me in your presence forever. Understanding that last chapter, we referred to the way in which David showed his thanks for God by praying for an open or thanking God for an open ear, and also reminding us that he delighted to do the will of the Lord. Much like we said, Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, seemed to find joy in being able to walk a pack of dogs off leash without the slightest concern for trouble. One of the ways that David seemed to say thanks to God is beyond sacrifice, being able to walk with you in a way that you find joy in walking with me untethered, which may be another way of saying watching me walk in integrity. And so much like David, thank God for giving him an open ear in the last chapter. My prayer for you is my prayer for me. To the degree that we're willing to hear it, may we lead the kind of lives that encourage God to leave our enemies waiting in vain.